New Welsh Review's multimedia programme is sponsored by Aberystwyth University.
Y Gymru ddi ar ddalen wen, aralledd ag amlddiwylliannedd mewn ffuglen Gymreig 1990, Black Wales and the Blank Slate, Otherness and Multiculturalism in the Fiction of Wales since 1990, in the series Y Meddwl a Dychymyg Cymreig, Welsh Thought and Imagination by Lisa Sheppard, published by University of Wales Press. Translations are by the reviewer Gwen Davies, but sociological and literary theoretical terms have not been translated since they originate in English. Like some late adopter feminist who suddenly clicks with the Me Too campaign, or a reluctant Welsh learner who moans on about feeling alienated by hearing Welsh, I have come late to post-colonial criticism. I have drawn on excuses similar, perhaps, to those of these latter groups. It's too serious and it makes my brain hurt. I avoided literary theory at uni and I'm not starting now. It's not applicable to the way I read and enjoy literature. I feel excluded by its intrinsic jargon. But, having read Y Gymru ddi, I reckon I now understand the theory and, indeed, already think in those terms. I even recognised its open, multifaceted underpinnings in the book I turned to next, the deceptively straightforward coffee table book, Wales in 100 Objects, Cymru mewn Cant Gwrthrych. The author, Andrew Green's introduction, summarises non-hierarchical and anti-monolithic approach to objects and the heritage institutions that house them. I translate from the Welsh language version. I am happy to defend my choices of the 100 and my interpretation of them, but every person will have their own choice, since every object provokes a very different reaction in each one of us. This book will have achieved one of its objectives if it draws the reader to think about those things that they believe should best represent Wales and its history. Sheppard's introduction to Y Gymru ddi hinges on the Brexit referendum campaign and Nigel Farage's endorsement of a poster of Middle Eastern refugees at the Slovenia-Croatia border, which, with its slogan, "We must take back control of our borders," set Westerners against and above them, the other and the unknown. She goes on to develop this idea of otherness, drawing first on feminist but then post-colonial theory. These ideas are applied both to Wales and England, but also to communities within Wales, including non-Welsh and Welsh-speaking people, as well as multi-ethnic areas across the country and migrants of different types in various states of exile. The first chapter looks at how the idea of Wales as a multicultural nation has been distorted in the lens of UK media representations, and credits Daniel G. Williams's analysis of the 2012 Olympics opening ceremony. Philosopher Hegel's theory of the master-slave dialectic is key, especially its incorporation into post-colonialism, as well as the 1952 book that inspired this one's title, Frantz Fanon's Black Skin, White Masks. Ideas of how the self and the other depend on each other are presented in an explanation of how one group may disregard or mistreat the other. Kirsty Bohata's Post-Colonialism Revisited, 2004, is also a crucial text in its application to Wales of Fanon's attribution of feelings of inferiority and dependency among black peoples, in part to Hegel's theory. Bohata also warns against the danger of hierarchical victimology and emphasises in an echo of those theorists that reject the position of Wales as a potentially post-colonial nation, the notion that groups may feel dominant or inferior in relation to each other in different situations. In translating the title of this book, I did realise how my creative emphasis on the English idiom clean slate failed to convey the antonyms of the original, literally a black country and a white page, but hoped that its emphasis on a new creative space reflected the book's drive to resist opposites. Y Gymru ddi is an analysis that challenges binary choice, informed as it is especially by the ideas of Simone de Beauvoir about the assumed characteristics of dominant male and subordinate female groups. De Beauvoir defines how the dominant group has the exclusive right to react, change, shape and have a dynamic relationship with the world, while the subordinate other is deemed to possess a homogeneous, unchanging set of characteristics which is defined by the first group. Throughout y Gymru Ddu, I believe that too much attention is given to the work of Charlotte Williams, but Sheppard generously observes a distinction between a dualistic tendency in Williams the academic and the more open, subtle attitudes presented in her autobiographical novel Sugar and Slate. This observation leads into the premise of this book, that fiction from Wales is better suited than sociological or political writing to the job of challenging binary and static definitions of identity, and that it currently reflects myriad cultures, languages and localities. Fiction, Sheppard argues, is best suited to envision a more inclusive, tolerant place. That is a political argument to which I will return in my conclusion. Sheppard performs another political act through her healing approach of critiquing Welsh language and English fiction from Wales alongside each other, discovering that these different readerships, although they are often one readership, the Welsh medium one, to which we will also return, are presented with similar themes and become open to empathising with characters from both milieux. To return to the clean slate or blank page of the title, y Gymru Ddu goes on to look at fiction authors such as Treza Azzopardi, Jo Dunthorne and Angharad Price through the prism of post-colonialism, most specifically using the idea of the hybrid, two cultures previously existing in a binary relationship fused into one different animal, and Homi Bhabha's third space of synergy, which allows room for multiple coexisting identities and emphasises the positive potential for renewal and creativity. This synergetic space is Sheppard's clean slate. Its most striking fictional representation in the literature analysed is Rachel Trezisi's notion within, in and out of the goldfish bowl, that the people of the Rhondda Valley might have been better off had their home been flooded, Tryweryn style, for a reservoir for English city dwellers. Of course, Trezisi's image is tongue-in-cheek, and Sheppard is perhaps guilty in places, while she does emphasise the humour of most of her subjects, in making over-literal interpretations of sardonic voices such as those of Trezise and Dunthorne. The chapter on migrants and exile is especially interesting, particularly when the author compares Azzopardi's novel, The Hiding Place, about a Maltese family that has migrated to Cardiff for economic reasons, with a family gifted by Nikita Lalwani, which is of Indian intellectual origin and moved to South Wales for aspirational educational motives. Her writing about how, for such characters, change haunts places of origin and relocation resonates, and is amplified by Edward Said's work on the new sensibility that emerges within the exile. He writes, "Most people are principally aware of one culture, one setting, one home. Exiles are aware of at least two, and this plurality of vision gives rise to an awareness of simultaneous dimensions, an awareness that, to borrow a phrase from music, is contrapuntal." That was Edward Said's reflection on exile. Another fascinating section is that on Mihangel Morgan's novella Pan Oedden yn Fachgen. In its discussion both of gender identity, the South East Wales dialect Gwasg of the narrative, and the author's own coining of the term caddy from the North Wales term cadifan as a positive spin on queer. In an echo of the running joke in the TV sitcom Derry Girls, in which the one boy character attending the girls' school is only ever and consistently mocked for being English, Sheppard underlines the double otherness of Morgan's transvestite protagonist. The fact that the boy speaks Welsh attracts more unwelcome attention than his alternative sexual identity. Discussion of Welsh language fiction here is highly sophisticated, especially in terms of the use of switch coding, where English or Welsh phrases are used within dialogue or anterior monologue of the opposite language, in the fiction of Catrin Dafydd and Chris Meredith. However, it is notable that in Chapter 4 on Language and Otherness, inadequate significance is attached to the fact that the authors of the English language novels covered in this section are Welsh speakers. Similarly, the author's argument that readership of the Welsh and English language novels of Wales should be more integrated is flagged up early and permeates the whole discussion but is not analysed until the very last chapter. It is only here that the idea of the Welsh language reader being privileged by her ability to read in both language cultures, one which Catrin Dafydd explores, is acknowledged. Disappointingly, this structural problem, with her laudable mission for her book, is skated over by Sheppard. She does not explore in any great depth other bilingual authors and their publication history, such as Fflir Dafydd or Alice Conran, nor the importance of translation, nor the role of English language cultural magazines, such as New Welsh Review, in bridging cultures with reviews, criticism, translations and subtitled prose multimedia trailers. I recently attended a meeting with the Welsh Books Council CEO, Helgard Kraus, in which she warned, with a sense of resignation, of further public funding cuts, and noted the difficulty of competing against other Welsh Government priorities such as health and education. The Welsh Books Council need look no further than a Gymru Ddu for arguments to shout the social relevance of fiction from the rooftops. What is Syed's contrapuntal sensibility but a definition of empathy, the missing life skill in those at risk of mental health breakdown and lawbreaking? She quotes from the 2004 report into Welsh writing English of the Assembly's own Committee for Culture, Welsh and Sports, but it seems we are again in danger of reinventing the wheel. The report stated, promoting these texts is an important strand in developing Wales, not only in terms of cultural, but also socially and economically. Politicians have often sought to set different parts of Wales and our language communities against each other, benefiting, for example, from the stereotype that multicultural communities only exist in South Wales, or that rural Wales is a traditional monolith of Welsh and intolerance to incomers of all stripes. The author must be frustrated that Dignity, Alice Conran's portrait of an Indian family and a Cambro-Indian woman in Colwyn Bay, forthcoming in April and reviewed in an upcoming e-edition, will be published too late for inclusion here. But Lisa Sheppard braves the disapproval her arguments may attract from those fearing her approach might undermine Welsh national identity. She writes, the portrayal of otherness to be found in these texts has the potential to create a national identity that is open and inclusive. Through adopting the method of reading between languages, we can read and interpret the nation anew, in Welsh, in English, and perhaps in a variety of other languages.